I only needed help with the heating bill, I said, watching my name disappear from the deed. They told me it was just paperwork, said it was for convenience, so they could split the costs better and get tax benefits. Olivia, my granddaughter, smiled as she said it, her hand on my shoulder like she was tucking me in. Her husband, Tom, added something about refinancing. I remember nodding, not understanding most of it, but not wanting to argue. It was winter. The house was cold. I had no savings left, and the oil company had already sent 2 warnings. I signed the papers in their lawyer's office. The man, young, impatient, pushed them across the table like I was just another signature. I didn't read the fine print. I didn't wear my glasses that day. That was 11 months ago. Now it's their house. Not in theory, not in feeling, not in some vague emotional way. In legal terms, on paper, on file, in the city register. The house George and I bought in 1971 with our first tax refund. The house where we patched the roof ourselves one rainy spring. Where he died, quietly, in the back bedroom. Holding my hand. Mine, now theirs. They didn't kick me out. That's what people always ask when I tell them the first part. So they just threw you out? No. Worse. They left me in, but made it clear, room by room, rule by rule, that I no longer belonged. The first sign was the thermostat. Olivia turned it down to 63 during the day. It's just more efficient, she said, flipping her ponytail, like she was reading from a magazine. I wore 2 sweaters and a coat inside. When I asked if we could bump it up just a little, she smiled thinly. We're all making sacrifices, Gran. Then it was the kitchen. I'd cooked every Sunday for 40 years. Roast chicken, stew, peach cobbler. Suddenly, the knives were too sharp for me. The pantry shelves were too high. Tom installed a lock on the liquor cabinet and handed me a little tin box with peppermint tea bags. We're cutting back on sugar, remember? My things began to disappear. The Afghan I crocheted in '89 vanished from the back of the couch. My porcelain figurines, gifts from George, were boxed for safety. My recliner, the one with the frayed arm, was moved into the garage. I found it wedged between Tom's golf clubs and an old treadmill. You're still family, Olivia said once as she passed me in the hallway. I'd just come out of the bathroom, and she wrinkled her nose before disappearing into their master suite. Things are shifting a little. Yes, shifting, like ice before it cracks. I started spending most of my time in the small sunroom. It used to be George's place for reading. Now it was mine. They let me keep a kettle on a side table and a jar of instant coffee. I had a chair, a blanket, my crossword book. Sometimes, when they were both at work, I'd wander the house like a ghost. Touching the doorknobs we replaced together in '93. Running my hand along the banister George built after his second knee surgery. Whispering to the walls. They bought new furniture. Sleek, cold, gray. Everything looked like it came out of a magazine. Not a single picture on the wall, just mirrors and chrome. And they changed the locks. That was when it all started to feel different. Not just wrong, but dangerous. They told me it was just for security and gave me a keypad code. 4721. George's birthday. It felt like a trick, like they were giving me something while taking away the meaning of it. I didn't sleep much. I started waking up around 4 a.m., making coffee, and sitting in the dark with my robe pulled tight, listening to the silence, to the creaks and groans of my house that I no longer owned. And then, last week, I found the envelope, wedged between gas bills and a grocery flyer from the county assessor's office. Notice of property transfer. New title holders. Olivia Hart and Thomas Hart. No mention of Mabel Hargrove. I sat down at the kitchen table and read it again. And again. The world didn't tilt. It just slowed down. And in that stillness, I remembered something. I may be old, but I'm not done. The dust was still there, even after Olivia's deep cleaning spree. She'd spent a Saturday morning scrubbing every corner like the house needed to be disinfected of me. Still, when I ran my finger along the window ledge in the sunroom, I found a fine gray line. George would have chuckled. No matter how hard you clean, time leaves its trace. They'd turned the living room into a showroom. Every item cold, pristine, unlived in. A gray couch no one sat on. Shelves with books they never read. A tall glass vase in the corner filled with fake white lilies. I used to keep a bowl of apples there. Red ones. Real. I wasn't banned from the room, not outright. But I felt it. Every time I walked through it to get to the laundry, Olivia's eyes followed me like I'd stepped on a carpet with my boots on. "You okay, Gran?" she asked once, smiling that smile that never reached her eyes. "Just doing some laundry." She tilted her head. "You know, if it's too much for you, we can add yours to ours. The machine's got enough load." I nodded, even though I knew what that meant. My clothes would get washed, sure, but also looked at, commented on. Faded underwear and old sweaters, evidence of my decline. That night, I folded my things alone, quietly, in the dark. Tom never said much, but what he did say always had a weight to it, like the day I left the kettle boiling too long. "Could have been a fire," he said, voice flat. "We should probably look into some safety options." I knew what he meant. Safety was code for rules, restrictions, maybe even removal. I stopped using the stove after that. Instead, I used the microwave in the laundry room. I'd warm my soup in plastic bowls and eat with the door closed. They didn't lock me out. They just made it clear I wasn't in. Bills came in every week, and I still paid the gas and the water. That hadn't changed. "It's just temporary," Olivia had said back when we signed those papers. "Once we're settled, we'll take over more." They never did. I kept a notebook in the sunroom, wrote down every payment: gas, $71, water, $44, electric, $138, garbage, $36, each line a little wound. Their names were on the deed, mine was on the bills. They bought a new sound system, installed it in the ceiling. "Smart home," Tom called it. He showed me how to control the volume from an app. I told him I didn't have a smartphone. He laughed. "Right." Forgot. They used it late at night, watching shows I couldn't follow. I'd lie in bed and listen to the low thrum of bass pulsing through the walls, like the house had a heartbeat I no longer recognized. They had friends over too. Not often, but enough. Young people with perfect teeth and loud laughs. I stayed in my room. Once, someone asked, "Who lives in that little room?" And Olivia answered, "Oh, just my gran. She mostly keeps to herself." Just. They ordered dinner a lot. Thai, sushi, wood-fired pizza. None of it for me. Sometimes they offered leftovers the next day. Cold noodles in a plastic box. "If you're hungry, Gran." I started shopping for myself. Walked the 3 blocks to Melvin's Market with my cart. Bought soup, crackers, milk. One afternoon, I came back and found Tom standing in the hallway with one of my grocery bags open. "You bought butter?" "Yes." "Just seems like a waste. We already have some." I didn't answer, just took the bag and wheeled it to the sunroom. The next day, their butter was labeled. So was the milk. Mine was pushed to the back of the fridge. This was the shape of my life now. Small humiliations, layered one over the other, and I took it. For a while, because what else could I do? One evening, I heard them talking after dinner. They didn't know I was still awake. "She's up too early," Olivia said, "walking around the house before sunrise." "It's creepy." "She's always in that room," Tom added. "Maybe we should think about, I don't know, assisted living?" "Don't say that." "I'm just saying, she's old. And what if she falls? This place isn't built for seniors." "I can't do that to her. Not yet." Not yet. They thought they were being kind, that by letting me live here, they were doing me a favor. I stared at the ceiling that night for hours. By morning, something had shifted inside me. I got dressed, combed my hair, took the thick envelope I'd saved from the county and placed it on the coffee table in front of them at breakfast. "What's this?" Olivia asked. "Proof," I said, "that you took the house." Tom looked at it, then at me. "We talked about this already." "No," I said. "You talked. I signed." And for the first time in 11 months, I saw it. Hesitation in Olivia's face. Not guilt, not fear, just a flicker of uncertainty. That flicker was all I needed. Tom didn't like surprises. That much was obvious. He stared at the envelope like it might explode. Olivia picked it up, flipped through the pages quickly, then placed it back down, pressing her palm against the table as if to flatten the problem. "Mabel, this isn't a courtroom," she said, her voice dipped in sugar. "Why bring this up now?" I stirred my tea. "Because it's time you stopped pretending you were helping me when you were helping yourselves." Tom exhaled through his nose. "That's not fair." "You think fairness is what this is about?" I said quietly. They both looked at me then, really looked, like they'd forgotten I could still speak plainly. For months they'd walked circles around me, talking over me, through me, treating me like background noise. And now I'd dropped a stone in the middle of their perfectly still water. "I paid the bills," I said, not raising my voice. "The gas, the water, the electricity. This house still runs on my checks." "Only because you insisted," Olivia muttered. "No, I offered to cover one heating bill. One. You suggested putting your names on the deed to make things easier. Said it was temporary. But here we are." 11 months later, and the only thing that changed is whose name the county sees when they look up the property. Olivia crossed her arms. "You're not being fair, Gran. We let you stay here. We gave you space." "You let me?" The silence after that was thick. I stood up slowly, leaving my tea untouched. "You didn't give me space. You gave me permission to exist in my own house, and I accepted it. I let it slide. I told myself, they're young. They don't understand yet. But I'm done explaining away disrespect." I walked back to the sunroom. I didn't slam the door. Didn't need to. Some sounds don't require volume to be heard. I sat in my chair, hands folded. Waited. Later that afternoon, Tom knocked. Just once. Then opened the door halfway. "Look," he said, "we didn't mean to make you feel excluded." "You didn't make me feel anything," I said. "You acted. I noticed." He hesitated, then stepped inside. "Is this about money? Because if that's what this is, we can draw something up. Maybe a rent agreement or—" I looked at him. "I've been paying to live in a house that was mine. How much more rent do you think I owe?" Tom didn't answer, just shifted from foot to foot. "You and Olivia both have jobs," I continued. "You go on vacations. You eat out. You buy gadgets and sound systems and wine I'm not allowed to touch. And every time I turn on the heat, I hear about it, like I'm bankrupting you. That's not what we're saying. No, I interrupted. It's what you're implying, every day, in every tone, every sigh. He ran a hand through his hair. So, what do you want? Do you want us to sign the deed back? Because that's not simple. There's taxes, there's paperwork. I didn't say I wanted anything, I replied. Not yet. And I meant it. Because this wasn't about a plan, not yet. This was about waking them up, reminding them that I wasn't a fixture, not a couch, not an obligation. That evening, Olivia barely spoke. She microwaved her dinner, then took it upstairs. The next morning, I found the heat set to 68. It was something, but I didn't trust it. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with my notebook. I started a new page at the back, labeled it, "They said they were helping." Underneath, I made a list. Deed transfer date, January 12th. Gas bills since, 11 water bills since, 11 property tax, paid by me, 2 groceries, 73-month average, then another list. Things they'd bought since moving in. Sound system new SUV patio furniture. Trip to Napa. Olivia posted pictures. I wasn't building a case. I was collecting the truth. Brick by brick. Midweek, I called the county clerk's office, asked for a copy of the property record. It arrived by mail 2 days later. Name on title, Olivia Hart and Thomas Hart. Previous owner, Mabel Hargrove, removed via quitclaim deed. I sat with that phrase for a long time. Removed via quitclaim deed. Removed. Like a stain. Like a weed. I'd signed it. My own hand. I remembered the pen. The smooth desk. The smell of lemon air freshener in that lawyer's office. But I hadn't known what I was signing. Not really. I made a photocopy and tucked it into my notebook. That Friday, I went to the library, used one of the public computers, looked up elder legal aid in the county, wrote down 2 phone numbers and an address. The librarian asked if I needed help printing. I smiled and told her no. I had what I needed. I walked home slowly, pushing my cart. My knees ached. My shoulder, too. But the sky was clear. My breath came steady. By the time I got back, Olivia was in the kitchen, sipping coffee. She glanced at the envelope in my hands. Another letter? No, I said. Just some reading. I didn't owe her more than that. She looked at me, searching, like she was trying to figure out what had changed. She couldn't see it, but it was there. The current had shifted. They gave me the back room. Used to be George's den. Wood-paneled walls, a small window that looked onto the fence, and a closet still smelling faintly of motor oil and pipe tobacco. They emptied it out, painted it a flat beige, and moved in a narrow daybed with a mattress that sagged in the middle. Nice and private, Olivia had said, standing with her hands on her hips like she was presenting a guest suite on a home tour. It wasn't privacy. It was separation. From the rest of the house, from their lives. No more shared dinners. No more coffee at the kitchen table. My meals were mine. My space was mine. And everything else? Theirs. I still heard them, of course. Walls are never as thick as people think. The laughter, the music, the delivery guy at the door, the clink of wine glasses. I kept a routine, woke at 5, made my instant coffee, sat in the sunroom with my notebook, wrote down numbers, dates, memories. The pages were filling fast now. They thought I'd tire myself out, that I'd fade. But when you have nothing else, focus becomes its own kind of power. Once, Olivia knocked on the door. Gran? I didn't answer. She opened it slowly. Just checking in. You doing okay? Fine, I said, without looking up. She lingered. You need anything? I paused, then turned a page in my notebook. A copy of the utilities folder, if it's not too much trouble. She blinked. Why? Just organizing my records. There was a long silence. Then she said, I'll see what I can find, and closed the door. I never got the folder, but I didn't need it. Everything I'd paid, I'd tracked. Every receipt, every check stub. And when I couldn't find the original, I called the companies and asked for duplicates. The woman at the electric company was kind. We've had a lot of calls like this lately, she said. You're not alone. That sentence echoed. You're not alone. The next day, I went to the senior center. Not to play bingo or join the crochet group. I didn't feel like being cheerful. I asked for a brochure from the information desk. Are you looking for activities or assistance? The young woman asked. Legal advice, I said. She nodded and handed me a flyer. We have a clinic every second Tuesday. You just missed one, but you can sign up for the next. I wrote my name in shaky cursive on the clipboard. On the way home, I bought a lemon tart from the bakery. I hadn't bought dessert for myself in years. Back in the sunroom, I ate it slowly, forkful by forkful, letting the tartness sit on my tongue. They didn't notice I'd been out. Didn't ask where I'd gone. That night, the thermostat dropped again. Back to 63. Message received. In the morning, I turned it back up to 67 and sat beside it in my coat until the warmth came. Tom appeared in the hallway around noon. We're going to need to set a rule about the thermostat, he said, not looking at me directly. Put it in writing, I said, folding my crossword book. He stared at me. Excuse me? You want rules? Write them down. Sign them. We'll keep a copy in the sunroom. He didn't answer. But he didn't turn it down again either. The game had shifted. They didn't know where it was going, but they sensed the direction. A few days later, Olivia mentioned casually over dinner, hers, not mine, that space is tight and they might consider adjusting the living arrangement soon. I sipped my tea. Is that so? She nodded. Nothing decided, just thinking ahead. We all want what's best, right? Of course, I said. Best for who? She smiled, but didn't answer. That night, I found one of my scarves in the laundry, faded, twisted, washed in the wrong cycle. It wasn't an accident. They wanted me uncomfortable, but they didn't understand the difference between discomfort and pressure. Pressure is what forms diamonds, and I was no longer a lump of coal in their basement. That week, I went to the county office, took the bus, brought my notebook and my papers, asked to speak to someone about property disputes. A woman named Carla, in a brown cardigan, listened patiently. This is more common than you'd think, she said, after flipping through my documents. We call it financial elder abuse, though it can be hard to prove. What about moral abuse? I asked. She gave a sad smile. That's harder still. But the payments, the change in ownership, the living conditions. Carla nodded. It builds a case. You're doing the right thing by documenting everything. She gave me another name, a nonprofit lawyer in town. He handles cases like this, no cost to you, but you'll need to act sooner than later. I walked out of the building feeling taller than when I walked in. Not because I had a solution, but because I had a direction. That night, Olivia made grilled chicken with couscous. The smell filled the house. She didn't offer me a plate, but I didn't mind. I was already full. It was around then that Olivia said the words out loud. I'd stepped into the kitchen to refill my kettle. She was on the phone, pacing in her slippers, barefoot, casual, like this house was hers. because it was. On paper. "Yeah, it's our property now," she said. Her voice wasn't even lowered. "We're thinking of opening up the back room, maybe turn it into a small office or a guest space." She paused, listened, then laughed. "No, she's still here. For now." I stood very still. She turned around and saw me, eyes widening for half a second, then slid into a tight-lipped smile. "Oh, Gran," she said, covering the phone slightly. "Didn't hear you come in." I walked to the kettle, filled it with slow, steady hands, and turned it on. She turned her back and kept talking, this time more quietly. I didn't ask who was on the other end. Didn't need to. She wasn't talking to a friend. She was talking to someone who needed to hear it. Someone who might ask about me. A distant cousin, maybe. Or a family friend. Whoever it was, Olivia wanted them to know she was in control. That night I wrote in my notebook, "She's still here. For now." The next day, I called the legal aid number Carla had given me, left a message. They called back the following afternoon. "Mrs. Hargrove," the voice said warmly, "we'd be happy to take a look at your case." We scheduled a meeting. Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. I didn't tell Olivia. Instead, I asked her where the deed was kept. She frowned. "Why?" "I'd like a copy for my records." She looked at Tom, then back at me. "It's digital. I think Tom has it." He shrugged. "I'll email it." They never did. Didn't matter. I already had my copy, the one from the county office, with my name missing in bold, bureaucratic ink. Tuesday came. I wore George's old cardigan, a bit frayed at the sleeves, but warm, reliable. The legal office was tucked behind a laundromat and a payday loan shop. The waiting room smelled like dust and lemon wipes. The lawyer, Mr. Levy, was in his 60s, balding, kind eyes. He listened, took notes, looked through my papers, asked a few sharp questions. "You signed a quitclaim deed," he said. "Voluntarily?" I didn't understand what it was. They said it was to help with the bills. He nodded. "You didn't receive compensation?" "No." "Was there a written agreement that you'd retain rights to live in the property?" "No, just family trust." "Any witnesses?" "The lawyer, Olivia, Tom." Mr. Levy sat back. "This isn't unusual, but it's ugly." I nodded. "It's not just about the house." "I know." He tapped his pen. "But the house is what we can fight over." He asked if I'd be willing to write a statement, to detail what had happened. "I already have," I said, handing him my notebook. He flipped through it, slowly, read for nearly 15 minutes without speaking. Then he closed it and looked at me. "You're remarkably precise. When you lose everything, you get very clear." He nodded. "There's a chance we can file for an elder financial abuse review. At the very least, we can draft a formal letter requesting restoration of partial title or financial reimbursement. It won't be fast. And it won't be pretty." "I don't need fast," I said. "And pretty's long gone." When I got home, Olivia was sitting in the living room, scrolling on her phone. She looked up. "Where'd you go?" "Out." "Everything okay?" I looked at her for a long time. "Do you think it is?" She blinked. "What's that supposed to mean? Do you think any of this is okay?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then stood. "Gran, don't make this difficult. We're trying. This isn't easy for us either." I turned away, walked back to the sunroom. She didn't follow. Later that evening, Tom came to the doorway. "You know," he said, "if this is going to turn into something legal, it's not going to go well. You signed everything. It's done." "Then why are you nervous?" I asked. He didn't answer. I went back to my crossword. That night, I slept better than I had in months. I found George's folder in the attic. It was buried under boxes of holiday decorations and old tax returns. The cardboard was soft with age, the edges curled, but his handwriting on the tab was unmistakable. House. Original papers. The air was thick with dust and insulation fibers, and my knees ached from climbing the pull-down steps. But I sat cross-legged on the wooden floor, the folder in my lap, and slowly opened the past. There it was. The original deed. Signed by both of us in April 1971. His handwriting bold, mine neater then. The notary's seal, faded gold. And beneath it, the mortgage records. Paid off in 1989. I remembered the day. George poured us a glass of cheap champagne and said, "No bank owns us now. This house is ours, May. Ours." I ran my fingers over his signature. He died in this house. And now his name was gone from everything but my memory. I added the documents to my growing file, carried them carefully back down the stairs, cradling them like something fragile. Tom was in the garage when I returned. Something about tools and storage bins. He didn't ask what I was carrying. Maybe he didn't want to know. I spent the rest of the day sorting papers at the kitchen table. Olivia passed by once, frowned, but said nothing. They were waiting. They knew I was building something. They just didn't know what. That night, I called Mr. Levy, told him about the original deed. "Photocopy it," he said, "then scan and send it to me. Keep the original somewhere safe." I did. The next morning, I visited the bank, asked to speak to someone about account histories. The manager, a woman in her 40s with a tired smile, helped me print out every payment I'd made for the property in the past year. Gas, water, electric, tax. "You've been covering everything?" she asked, surprised. "They said they were helping with my bills," I replied. She didn't say anything, just slid the printouts toward me. I put them in a new envelope, labeled it, "Proof of Contribution." When I got home, the atmosphere was different, tighter. Olivia had cleaned. Again. The hallway smelled like lavender disinfectant. The rug in the entryway was gone. My rug. In the kitchen, my kettle had been unplugged. Small things, but loud. I plugged it back in. Tom appeared a few minutes later, arms crossed. "We need to talk." I nodded. "So talk." He looked like he'd rehearsed this. "We've been thinking it might be better for everyone if you started considering options." "Options?" "There's a retirement place near the lake," he said. "It's quiet. Good medical support. Independence." Olivia joined him then, stepping in from the hallway. "We're not trying to push you out, Gran. But this house, it's a lot to juggle. We're trying to build a future here." I looked at her. "You mean without me?" "No," she said quickly. "It's not like that. You'll always be family. We just think you might be more comfortable." I held up a hand. "Stop." They froze. I stood slowly, my knees cracking. "This is the house I built. Brick by brick. Bill by bill. I buried my husband here. I raised your mother here. I peeled wallpaper and patched roofs and paid off every inch of this place with hands that scrubbed floors until the skin cracked." Olivia's face tightened. "You signed it over." "I did," I said, "and I regret it. But you've mistaken that paper for permission." "It's not." Tom looked irritated. "So what now? You're going to sue us?" "I'm going to reclaim what you thought I'd never fight for." He scoffed. "You won't win. You signed the deed. You gave it up." "Maybe," I said. "Maybe I won't win in court, but you'll lose something else. Reputations. Time. Maybe more." They were quiet. I walked past them to the sunroom, sat in my chair. The kettle clicked off behind me. I didn't even need the tea anymore. I had everything I needed. The envelope from Mr. Levy arrived on a Thursday. Thick, official, cream-colored. Olivia picked it up from the mailbox, glanced at the return address, and placed it silently on the hall table. She didn't knock, didn't ask. She knew. I waited until after dinner, when the dishwasher was humming and Tom was on his laptop, to open it. Inside, a printed letter, 4 pages long, and a draft of the formal notice, intent to seek reinstatement of property interest and reimbursement of expenses. The language was dry, but the weight was unmistakable. It listed dates, transfers, the lack of compensation, and, most critically, the continued financial responsibility I'd maintained for the house. There was a phrase I underlined in pencil. Pattern of financial dependence paired with transfer of ownership may constitute grounds for reversal or equitable compensation under elder financial protection statutes. I folded the papers neatly, slipped them into a new folder, labeled it in block letters, Next Steps. That night, I slept without a single interruption. In the morning, I poured myself coffee and waited. Olivia came down first. She always did. Hair pulled back, face blank before makeup. She avoided my eyes. Tom followed 15 minutes later. They sat side by side, eating toast in silence. Finally, I placed the folder on the table. "You should read this," I said. Tom didn't move. Olivia reached for it hesitantly, flipped through the pages, reading just enough to go pale. "What is this?" she asked. "Information," I said. "You've both made choices. I'm making mine." Tom took the folder from her, scanning quickly. "You're threatening to sue us?" "I'm stating what I've done, what I paid, what you took." "It's not like that," Olivia said. "Gran, we never wanted to hurt you. This was just... it got complicated." "No," I said quietly. "You made it complicated. I signed something out of trust. You turned that trust into leverage." She looked at Tom. He looked at the wall. I stood. "I'm giving you until the end of the month to respond. After that, my lawyer proceeds." Tom exhaled. "With what?" "You don't have a case." "Then you've got nothing to worry about," I said, walking away. They didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. But I saw them whispering in the hallway, heard the click of Tom's keyboard in the office. Olivia pacing on the back porch, on the phone again. They were circling. The next afternoon, a new thermostat rule appeared on the fridge. Printed. Laminated. House energy policy. Daytime, 65 degree. Evening, 67 degree. Doors to remain closed. No signature. No discussion. Just power games. I didn't comment. Instead, I went to the post office and mailed Mr. Levy the signed authorization to move forward. On the way back, I stopped at the bakery, bought a small chocolate tart, took it home, ate it slowly in the sunroom while the dishwasher whirred in the background. The heat clicked on, just once, then off. Later that night, I overheard Olivia crying in the kitchen. Tom's voice was low, annoyed. "She's bluffing. She's old. She doesn't want to fight." I smiled, not out of cruelty, out of clarity. They were still trying to make me small, but I had already stepped out of the box they'd built for me. The next morning, Tom knocked on my door. I didn't answer right away. Let him wait. Finally, I opened it. "We need to talk," he said. I nodded. "Then talk." He looked tired. "Look, we've been thinking. Maybe we did handle things poorly. Maybe there's a way to fix this, without dragging everyone into court." "That depends," I said, "on whether you're talking about fairness or damage control." He hesitated. "What do you want?" I want what I gave, I said. Control, respect, a place at the table, and if you can't give that, then I'll take what I can get through other means. He didn't answer, but something in his face shifted. Not guilt, not yet, but fear. And that was new. I hadn't heard from Thea in almost 4 years. She was George's niece, bright, sharp, a little too opinionated at family dinners, but loyal in the way some people only become after loss. She'd gone to law school, last I heard. Moved out west. So when her number popped up on my phone 2 days after the folder on the kitchen table, I hesitated before answering. Aunt Mabel? Her voice was the same, fast, no nonsense. Hi. Olivia called me. Said you're threatening to sue. I smiled into the receiver. Is that how she phrased it? She's rattled, Thea said. I don't think she expected you to push back. I don't think she expected me to notice. There was a pause. You okay? I am now. She exhaled. Good. Listen, I'm not calling to intervene. I just want to say, whatever you decide, I support it. And if you want a second opinion, I know a few people who specialize in elder protection law. I can send you some names. Already working with someone, I said. Then they're lucky to have you. It was a short call. But I hung up, feeling steadier. Sometimes it only takes one person to remind you that your memory still counts as evidence, that your story matters. That afternoon, I sat on the porch for the first time in months. The air was crisp. The maple across the street was starting to turn. Tom passed by the window twice but didn't come out. The silence was growing heavier inside the house. They were still polite, mostly, but it was the strained politeness of people living on a fault line. I'd hear them whisper at night. Olivia's voice rising, Tom's clipped responses. I didn't need to know the words. I knew the tone. They were losing control of the narrative. And that was always what mattered most to people like them. Not the truth, but the version others would believe. The next morning, a card appeared on my pillow. Just a simple white square with Olivia's handwriting inside. We're sorry if things haven't felt fair. Let's talk about a path forward. Love, O&T. No mention of the house or the bills, just tone softening. Damage management. I tucked it into my notebook without reply. By the end of the week, Mr. Levy had sent the first formal letter to their email and a certified copy by mail. I didn't tell them. I didn't need to. Tom found the envelope in the mailbox Saturday morning and slammed the front door harder than usual. I heard them arguing behind closed doors. Let them. I took my coffee outside. A few hours later, Olivia stood in the doorway to the sunroom. Can we please talk? She asked. I looked up. Talk or negotiate? Both, I guess. I gestured to the chair across from me. She sat, crossed her arms, then uncrossed them. This house means a lot to us, too. We're building a life here. We didn't mean to take it from you. But you did. She flinched. Gran, I didn't know it would feel like this. That's because you never stopped to imagine what it would feel like to lose everything and be told it was a kindness. She was quiet. Then, what do you want? I want what you offered a year ago, I said. Help with the bills, not control, not erasure. You want the house back? I want it shared, fairly, as it was. Olivia rubbed her temples. Tom's not going to like this. Tom doesn't have to like it. He has to face it. She looked at me, really looked, for the first time in months. Do you hate us? She asked. I paused. No, but I don't trust you. And that's worse. She nodded slowly, then stood. Let me talk to him. Take your time, I said. but not too much. Lawyers move faster than guilt. She didn't smile, but she didn't slam the door either. Progress. I poured more coffee and wrote in my notebook. They blinked. The formal reply came 3 days later. Mr. Levy forwarded it to me with the subject line, "Initial response from opposing party." I opened it on my tablet, sitting at the sunroom table, my fingers calm but cold. The letter wasn't from Tom or Olivia. It came from a lawyer, one of those sleek-sounding firms with a name like polished brass. Whitmore and Feld. The tone was professional, flat, meant to sound respectful while holding a knife behind the back. They acknowledged my claim, denied any wrongdoing, suggested that Mrs. Hargrove's contribution to the household, while generous, was never tied to any contractual understanding regarding ownership or equity. And then came the suggestion: a one-time payment, as a gesture of appreciation and goodwill, in exchange for signing a new agreement waiving any future claims to the property. $20,000. 20. As if my years in that house, my bills, my losses, my name, could be itemized and resolved in a neat check. I stared at the number for a long time. Then I clicked reply and wrote to Mr. Levy, "Let's move forward, no settlement." He answered 5 minutes later, "Understood." That evening, I made stew. From scratch. Not because I needed to eat, but because the act itself felt like something mine. A way to remind myself of who I'd been before they tried to make me small. The smell filled the house. Tom passed by the kitchen, nose twitching. "Smells good," he said, like we were strangers in a shared space. I didn't answer. Olivia didn't come down for dinner. The next morning, they both sat at the kitchen table, waiting. "Gran," Olivia began, "we got your lawyer's letter." "I know." Tom cleared his throat. "We didn't mean to insult you with the offer. We just thought maybe you'd want an easier resolution. You thought I'd take the money and disappear." "No," Olivia said quickly. "We just thought it would be simpler." "For whom?" Silence. I sat across from them. No folder this time, no notebook. Just my hands folded, steady. "I'm not after revenge," I said. "I'm after recognition. You took control of something that wasn't yours to take, and now you want to buy back your conscience on discount." Tom leaned back. "This is going to get messy." "It's already messy," I said. "You just kept the mess behind closed doors." Olivia looked at me, eyes tired. "What do you want, Gran?" "Really?" I met her gaze. "A legal share of the house, my name on the deed, a formal acknowledgement of what I've contributed, and a written agreement that protects my right to live here as long as I choose." Tom opened his mouth, closed it. "That's a lot." "It's fair," I said. They didn't argue. Not then, because they knew. They'd underestimated me. They thought I'd fall apart quietly. Instead, I'd become sharp, measured, prepared. After they left the table, I made tea and sat in the sunroom, watching the wind push the branches outside. George used to say, "A storm isn't always thunder. Sometimes it's just air moving with purpose." I could feel it, the pressure shifting. Let them draft their counteroffers. Let their lawyer polish the words. I had time, and now I had leverage. It was Ruth who reminded me who I was. She lived 2 doors down, always had. We'd raised our children on the same stretch of sidewalk, shared casseroles in tough winters, watched each other's husbands grow stooped and silent with time. Ruth had a laugh like gravel and a spine like steel. She knocked on my door late one afternoon, holding a tin of lemon squares. "You've been too quiet," she said, stepping in without waiting. That either means you're sick or you're planning something. I smiled. A little of both, maybe. She sat across from me in the sunroom, pushed the tin toward me. Olivia looked like she'd swallowed a tack when I saw her last week. You've rattled their pretty little cage, haven't you? I'm trying. Ruth nodded as if that settled it. About time. We ate in silence for a while. The sun dipped low behind the trees. Then she looked at me, serious. You need to be careful, Mabel. Not because they're dangerous, but because they're desperate. People don't act rational when they feel exposed. I know. And you've got them cornered now. I can see it. They know the neighbors are starting to talk. They know you've got the law on your side, or enough of it to scare them. And what they'll try next might look like kindness, but it won't be. I sipped my tea. You always could read people. She shrugged. Living this long has to be good for something. When she left, I felt steadier. Not stronger, just more seen. That evening, Olivia knocked on my door. Gran? Her voice was soft. Can we talk? I opened it. She held a paper in her hand. A printed page, crisp and straight. We drafted something, she said. Tom and I. Not official. Just something to look at. She offered it to me. I took it, but didn't invite her in. Later, under the lamplight, I read. It was a mock agreement. A promise to explore avenues for co-ownership. A vague reference to respecting residency. No firm numbers, no legal commitment. Just words, padded and pretty. I folded it and placed it under my teacup. The next morning, I made a copy. Mailed it to Mr. Levy. In my note, I wrote, "They're still circling. Let's proceed." He replied by noon. Understood. I'll begin filing. The wheels turned. I spent the afternoon in the garden. Weeds had taken hold between the bricks. I pulled them slowly, carefully, until my back ached and my knees stung. It felt good, real, painful, but mine. Tom came out halfway through, stood at the porch steps, arms crossed. You're really going to drag this into court? I didn't look up. You dragged it the moment you erased my name. We didn't erase it. You signed it over. And now I'm signing it back. You can't just take it. No, I said, but I can make you answer for how you got it. He didn't respond, just went back inside. That evening, Olivia left a plate by my door. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes. I didn't touch it. Kindness isn't real when it's offered under pressure. It's just strategy. I made myself soup. Before bed, I updated my notebook. October 10th. They've begun to retreat, offering half promises, the kind that vanish when pressure lifts. I won't let the pressure lift. Not yet. The house was quiet, but I no longer mistook that silence for peace. On Sunday, I didn't speak, not out of strategy, not as a show of protest. I simply had nothing left to say to them. The papers had been filed. Mr. Levy sent confirmation that morning. Petition submitted, documentation attached, preliminary hearing date pending. The legal system moves slowly, but silence moves faster. They felt it. Olivia hovered outside the sunroom twice, pretending to water the plant she hadn't touched in weeks. Tom made more noise than usual in the kitchen, clanging dishes, muttering under his breath. But neither of them knocked. Neither asked questions. I made my coffee, folded laundry, sat in my chair. I didn't hum, didn't sigh, didn't acknowledge the house around me. Sometimes silence is the only voice people can't interrupt. By mid-afternoon, I heard them whispering again in the hallway. She's waiting for us to react, Tom said. She's making her point. No, she's building a case. She already built it. I smiled at that. They were finally catching up. Around dinner time, a knock came, not on my door, but at the front. I heard Olivia answer, voice surprised. "Hi, can we help you?" A woman's voice responded, firm, professional. I recognized it before I even saw her. Carla, from the county office. She'd said she might stop by for a welfare check if the paperwork moved forward. I stayed in the sunroom, didn't intrude. I heard the low cadence of her voice, calm but clear. Olivia's replies, flustered. Tom, silent. After about 15 minutes, Carla tapped gently on my door. I opened it. She smiled. "Just wanted to see how you were holding up." I nodded. "Holding. Good." She glanced over her shoulder. "They didn't expect me." "No one ever expects the paperwork to start breathing." She grinned. "Mr. Levy's got a reputation. Quiet but precise. I picked him for that reason." She looked at me for a moment, serious now. "They've tried to paint you as confused, scattered, emotionally reactive. Of course they have. But I've read your file and your notes. You're clearer than most people I work with. Just keep doing what you're doing. Stay steady." "I'm old," I said. "Not unwise." "Exactly." She left soon after. Olivia didn't speak a word to me that evening. Neither did Tom. The silence had grown teeth. They no longer knew how to respond without making it worse, and I gave them nothing to interrupt. The next morning, the heat stayed on longer than usual. The hallway was vacuumed. The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee. They were trying to return to normal. But normal was gone. I walked the perimeter of the house, checked the mailbox, sat on the porch with my shawl and my tea, waved to Ruth when she passed. She waved back with 2 fingers and a smirk. Inside, the walls tightened. Olivia texted me for the first time in weeks. "Gran, can we please talk tonight?" I didn't answer. Some conversations lose their meaning the moment they require permission. At dusk, I lit a candle in the sunroom, not for ritual, not for drama, just because I wanted the warmth. And in its glow, I wrote a single sentence in my notebook. Let them feel the weight of what they called help. By Thursday, Olivia cracked. Not loudly, not with tears. Just a soft knock on my sunroom door and the smallest voice I'd heard from her in years. "Gran," she said, not stepping inside. "I know you don't want to talk, but please, just 5 minutes." I looked at her. Not at her outfit, not at her eyes, just at the way she held her hands. Twisting her own fingers like she was 12 again, caught in some half-truth. I nodded once. She stepped in like the floor might collapse beneath her. "We got a call from your lawyer today," she said. "Tom read it twice. He's upset." "Of course he is." Her shoulders dropped. "Gran, I never meant for it to come to this. That's the second time you've said that to me in a month." She sat on the edge of the chair. "We were scared. Last year, with all the bills and the mortgage stuff and Tom's job going unstable, it felt like we were drowning. And so you decided to hold me underwater too." "No." She stopped, swallowed. "We thought we could manage it. That if we just got things in our name, it'd make things easier to restructure. We didn't think you'd care. You said you trusted us." "I did." My voice was even. "And you counted on that trust to make me invisible." She blinked. "We weren't trying to erase you. You stopped including me in decisions. You called me just your Gran to strangers. You turned this house into something sterile. You left me off the title and called it help." She didn't deny any of it, just whispered, "I don't know how to fix it." "You don't," I said. "That's the point. This isn't about fixing feelings. This is about fixing facts." I stood, walked to the desk. picked up the most recent printout from Mr. Levy. I held it out to her. This is where it stands. You and Tom have two options. You can meet us in negotiation, or you can fight in court. But if you're hoping for forgiveness without correction, you're standing in the wrong house. She took the paper, hands trembling slightly. I'll talk to him tonight. You do that. She left quietly, closed the door behind her like it meant something. The next morning, Tom was gone when I woke up. No note, no sound. Olivia moved through the kitchen in a daze. The air in the house felt thick with what hadn't been said. By midday, she knocked again, firmer this time. Tom's not coming back until we figure this out, she said. He says it's too much stress, that we should just buy you out and move. I looked at her. Is that what you want? She didn't answer. Instead, she sat across from me and placed a stack of papers on the table. He printed these last night. Offer letters. Outlines. It's not enough, but it's something. I leafed through them. Property valuation reports, estimates, a cash offer that came nowhere near the value of the house, especially not with inflation and the current market. You still think money is the answer? I said. She leaned forward. Gran, this house, it was always going to be ours someday. We just rushed it. We didn't do it right. You didn't do it honestly. She nodded. I folded the papers. I'll send these to Mr. Levy. You'll hear from him. She looked like she wanted to say something more. Maybe a thank you. Maybe a cry. But I held up my hand. Not today. She left again. That evening, Ruth called. I saw Olivia crying in the driveway, she said. She's unraveling. She's unraveling a truth she built herself, I replied. Ruth let out a short breath. You sound like you've already won. No, I said, but I stopped losing. I spent the rest of the night organizing documents, lining them up by date, by transaction, notes, receipts, voice memos I'd begun to record when I couldn't write fast enough. I listened to one of them. April 3rd. Thermostat changed again. Tom says it's for efficiency. I say it's about control. The sound of my own voice, steady, worn, felt like company. I slept well, and in the morning, I wrote a new line in my notebook. The cracks are visible. Now I wait for the collapse. The letter went out on Monday morning. Mr. Levy called it final notice before litigation. It was quiet in tone, methodical in language, but it drew a line in permanent ink. I printed a copy and placed it in a plain envelope. Left it on the kitchen table, where I knew Olivia would find it before noon. By then, Tom still hadn't returned. Olivia's movements had gone hollow, rinsing mugs she didn't use, checking the mailbox twice a day, opening the fridge and standing there too long, like waiting for something to appear that never would. I didn't ask where Tom had gone. Didn't care. Disappearing is a choice, too. At 2:17 p.m., I heard her push her chair back and come down the hallway. She didn't knock this time, just stood in the doorway of the sunroom, the envelope in one hand, eyes rimmed with red. Why are you doing this? She asked. Her voice wasn't angry anymore, just tired, cracked at the edges. I looked at her. Because no one else will. She shook her head slowly. We were a family. No, I said. We were a hierarchy pretending to be a household. She sat without being asked, clutched the envelope like it burned her fingers. You know, I told myself we were helping you, that we were giving you peace, that we were making things simpler. You were making yourselves comfortable. She didn't argue. I lied to myself, too, I said after a moment. Told myself you were just young, overwhelmed, that you'd learn. But months passed, and you kept taking. One day I woke up and realized I was living in a house where my name didn't belong anymore. I didn't think it would feel like this, she said softly. No one ever thinks theft feels like anything until the person you took from finally calls it by its name. Olivia set the envelope on her lap and stared at her hands. He won't fight. Tom. He doesn't want to go to court. Says it's not worth the headache. He's talking about walking away from the house entirely. I didn't react. Let the silence do the holding. I don't know what I want, she whispered. Part of me thinks we should just give it back. Fix it. But then I think, what if we lose everything? What if this destroys us? You can't lose what you never earned, I said. You can only return it. She looked up at me, something between grief and clarity in her face. What do you want from me? I already told you, I said. An honest correction, not a gesture, not a guilt offering. I want legal restoration, my name back on the deed, a contract that guarantees my right to remain here without conditions until I choose to leave or die, and I want it signed, notarized, and filed properly. Olivia blinked slowly. That's final. Yes. And if we agree, then this ends quietly. She nodded once, stood, and walked out without another word. I let the door stay open. The house felt larger that way. The next morning, a courier dropped off a thick manila envelope addressed to me. Inside, a draft agreement, handwritten notes from her lawyer, a tentative outline for deed amendment. They weren't arguing anymore. They were retreating. I read every line, red-penned the soft phrases, the escape hatches, the clauses designed to offer flexibility when clarity was needed. Then I sent it back to Mr. Levy with a note. Progress, but not finished. That night, I left the door to the sunroom cracked open, just wide enough to remind them I wasn't hiding, that I didn't need to anymore. Ruth called. They folding? She asked. They're creasing, I said. Folding takes more time. She laughed. You want me to bring that peach cobbler I promised? I think this is a you survived the first battle kind of dessert. I smiled. Not yet. One more letter to go. And then I wrote a final line in the day's entry. They've stopped fighting me. Now I wait to see if they fight themselves. The notary came on a Friday. A young man, no more than 30, briefcase in hand, polite smile, practiced and distant. Olivia let him in. She'd already moved the dining table chairs around, cleared space, set out the documents. Everything looked neat, quiet, like the stage for a family dinner that never happened. Tom wasn't there. Hadn't been for over 2 weeks. Rumor, thanks to Ruth, was that he'd gone to stay with a cousin in Vermont. Just for clarity, Olivia had said over toast a few days prior, he's not abandoning me. He just needs space. I didn't respond. I wasn't his keeper. The notary introduced himself, pulled out the deed correction forms, the new co-ownership agreement, the residency clause. All printed fresh. All properly labeled. I sat across from Olivia. No words. Just the papers between us. She signed first, then slid the pen across the table. I took my time, read every line again. Not because I doubted Mr. Levy, but because I wanted her to see I understood now, every inch, every word. Then I signed. The notary stamped, embossed, shuffled the pages into order. Congratulations, he said with a professional nod, and then he was gone. The silence after he left was wide. Olivia stood, wiped the edge of the table as if dust had gathered in the last 10 minutes. It's done, she said. Not a question, not even relief. Yes. Do you feel better? I looked at her. I feel home again. She nodded once, slowly. I'll give you space. No, I said. What you'll do is honor the terms. She blinked. I know what you meant, but don't slip back into habit. This wasn't forgiveness. This was a correction. Something passed over her face then, not shame, but comprehension. I won't forget, she said. You will, I replied gently. But I won't. She didn't cry. Neither did I. Some truths settle quieter than that. She spent most of the weekend upstairs. I stayed in the sunroom. On Sunday, Ruth came over with that promised cobbler. We ate it with tea, sitting near the window, watching the neighborhood go about its business like nothing had ever happened. You did it, she said. I didn't win, I said, but I ended the losing. That counts. Later that evening, I took out my notebook and opened to the very first page. They said they were helping with my bills. I ran my fingers over the line. Thought about the woman who wrote that. Tired, unsure, still asking permission. Then I turned to the last page. October 24th. The deed is shared. The terms are legal. My name is home again. I closed the book. Filed it in the drawer beside George's old folder. There are battles you fight because you're angry, others because you're proud, and some because you finally remember who you are. I didn't need them to love me. I needed them to see me. And now they had no choice. They stopped knocking after that. For weeks, Olivia moved like someone living next to a stranger. We shared the kitchen, the hallway, the same air, but not much else. She kept to her side of the house. I kept to mine. The correction had been made, the papers signed. My name returned to the deed, my residency secured. But peace doesn't always follow justice. Sometimes it arrives slowly, like a guest who's unsure if they were truly invited. Tom came back in November. No announcement, just the sound of his suitcase wheels bumping over the porch boards. Olivia opened the door for him, took his coat, said nothing I could hear. We didn't speak that first day, or the second, but the temperature in the house stayed steady. 67 degrees. No notes on the fridge. No house energy policies. Just warmth. One morning, I found a grocery bag by the sunroom door. Apples, flour, a stick of butter. No note, but the message was clear. I baked the pie anyway. Set it on the table, untouched. By evening, 3 slices were missing. That was how the truce began. No apologies. No grand gestures. Just a quiet reshaping of how we existed under the same roof. I kept my routine. Woke early. Made tea. Wrote in a fresh notebook. This one green, wide-ruled, without a title yet. The first line was simple. The silence feels different now. They tread lighter now, both of them. Less performance, more presence. Sometimes I catch Olivia watching me across the room, as if she's remembering someone she forgot she knew. She's not my enemy. She never was. Just a woman who wanted a future and reached for it carelessly, not noticing what or who she stepped over. I see that now. I don't excuse it, but I understand it. We all think we're doing the best we can, until someone shows us what harm we've done in the name of good intentions. A few days ago, she knocked gently. "Gran?" she asked. "Do you want to come to dinner?" I looked at her carefully. "Are you asking me to join you or offering me a seat?" She paused, then said, "I'm asking if you'd sit with us, as you are." That was enough. I sat at their table that night. No speeches, just roasted vegetables, soft music, and a quiet acknowledgement that some wrongs, when righted fully, leave space for new things to grow. Tom poured me a glass of wine. No one made a toast, and that, in some strange way, felt right. Afterward, I returned to my sunroom, lit a candle, picked up my pen. October 30th. I didn't reclaim this house for nostalgia. I reclaimed it because memory matters, and I intend to leave mine clear. Sometimes people ask why I didn't just walk away, find a new place, leave them to their own mess. But this was never just about square footage or ownership. It was about something older, something deeper. The right to exist fully, without needing to explain why. The dignity of staying visible. This house has my fingerprints in its walls, my voice in its pipes, my breath in its windows. I was never a guest here. Just someone who had been slowly erased line by line. I picked up the pen. I wrote myself back in. And if this story found you, if something in it echoes where you live, in your bones, in your name, I hope you remember this. They can't take your place without your silence, and your voice is still yours, no matter how long it's been quiet. Don't let them decide what you're owed. Take it back. If this story moved something in you, if you saw yourself or someone you love between the lines, share it. Comment. Tell me what part stayed with you, because silence built this world. But our voices can change it.